Own Way, the podcast with me, your host, Kori McClurg.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Get Out of Your Own Way, the podcast. I'm Kori McClurg, author of the book, Get Out of Your Own Way. And today I want to talk about this idea of like knowing yourself. Today, the common term is authenticity, and being your authentic self. And I want to talk about this because it is like the kind of the big last section of my book where I talk about unleashing your power. And I realize that is kind of a daunting thing for a lot of us, because we've never really given any thought to who we are, what we care about. We just sort of have lived our lives in reaction to other people and the outside world. But I think it's a really important question. And I think globally, the thing that we have to do is just sort of get really quiet, right? And to be able to listen to ourselves, we kind of have to remove a lot of crap from our lives to be able to figure out what in the heck is going on for us, and to really hear ourselves. And one of those things is to remove so much noise about our health. That's, really the focus of my book, is that a lot of the noise that we have going on in our head is relating to our health. And whether it's in strictly an internal way, so we're literally just hearing the noise in our brain about being overweight or the worries that we have about our health going forward, particularly as we age and we get more and more concerned with our independence, and preserving as much of that as we can, preserving our faculties, performing, or preserving our ability to perform and just be active in life. Or it may very well be the noise of dealing with active disease, like going to the doctor a lot, because you have, one of many lifestyle diseases, diabetes, heart disease, whatever. And so very much, I talked in this book so much about how to remove that noise from your life so that you can hear yourself, so that you can hear, what is the nature of that small fire that's burning in your gut, that once you remove the noise, it could really take hold and you could pursue what's important to you in life. But also, for a lot of us, even after we've removed that noise of our health, we still find it difficult, right, to understand ourselves. What do we believe? What do we think is important? What do we want? And the fact of the matter is, we find it difficult because we've never been allowed to think about that. We've always had the pressures of life, some of them, very real financial pressures, or we've just had pressures brought to us by the people in our lives, people that have expectations of us, that have, that they get their self-worth from, getting something from you or getting some validation from you. There, and a lot of that happens, that starts when you're a little kid, so it is hard. It's really hard to listen, to try to hear yourself, to try to figure out what, who am I and what is it that I want? but the thing that I've found, and I think I've continued in my, as I age, is just trying to figure out how to create the quiet, so that you can hear it. A lot of times I've continued to force myself to be in situations, I think, because, I thought there was something to be learned from it. I would learn something about myself by putting myself in these positions. And I think that is true, especially when you're young. I do think there's value in like putting yourself in difficult positions, backpacking, the Appalachian Trail, or bumming your way through Europe, or, whatever, like all these ways of, and I'm certainly not suggesting that anybody put themselves in physically unsafe positions. But I just mean like putting yourself in doing hard things. I mean, that's really it. Not to, overuse Glennon Doyle's phrase, but yeah, like putting yourself in these positions where you're going to do hard things. And I certainly think there for sure is something to be said for that. You do learn a lot about yourself when you put yourself in these positions to do hard things. But also, I think there is something to be said for getting really quiet and getting really still, and creating the environment for yourself to be quiet and still. And when I say quiet and still, I'm not literally saying like, sitting in a soundproof room and not moving. Although that might be, going to a meditation retreat or a silent retreat. I mean, that's another form of doing something hard. And you learning a lot about yourself. I haven't done it. I've only heard what people say. It sounds really hard, and something that I would like to do one of these days. But like, removing things that you aren't for you, or you're questioning whether they are for you, and seeing what happens. If you're feeling all the pressure to be involved in, I don't know, whatever, like social group, or to like, like be in every bake sale, or like run in those circles of the rest of the moms, or like, you feeling the pressure of like, yes, it's tradition that we do, whatever it is, the family tradition, every football Sunday or whatever. And, you're questioning, and you're just feeling a lot of noise about it because you're starting to question it, but you aren't sure. I think there's something to be said for just trying it out, to say, what if I remove this like noisy thing in my life? And when I say noisy thing, it's the noise in your head, right? Some of them may literally be noisy if it is, that type of situation. But, and just seeing what happens, like giving yourself a chance, give yourself some compassion, enough compassion to like try removing something, regardless of what you think the consequences are, regardless of what you think people are going to say, regardless of the judgment that you fear that you're going to weigh on yourself. Like, how can you start making space for you to hear yourself? That, to me, is one of the most gracious things you can do for yourself, of like, how can I be first? How can I finally like take, put me first and say, I deserve a little quiet so that I can figure out what it is that I want. When I can figure out what is okay with me, I can figure out what my priorities are, and just let yourself have that a little bit. You don't have to make any life-changing decisions. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just can be a little graciousness, right? As much as you can eke out for yourself, a little grace of being able to hear yourself and have some compassion for yourself. And certainly do I think that, your own physical health is a huge part of that. Absolutely. I think there is that. One, there's so much noise in our head about it. There might be external noise for you about it. And also there is so much of your mental health that is tied up in your physical health. You're not cut off at the neck. This is one whole system. There's a reason that's, sayings like, trust your gut, have come about because we have receptors for brain chemicals in our gut, and vice versa. We produce chemicals that our brain is receptive to in our gut. So we're not cut off at the neck. So I do think that your physical health is has such a huge impact on your mental health, and vice versa. So yes, I think that when you choose yourself by choosing better health, by eating an apple instead of reaching for the processed snack, that contributes to your overall mental health, and that contributes to you being able to get quiet and hear yourself. But also I think you can't ignore all these other ways that, we invite noise. We don't, set internal boundaries for ourselves around what other people think, or have that constant trying to make other people happy. For sure, that is a real thing too. And I think that, I'd be remiss in not saying that out loud, that, that yes, your physical health is for sure one way that we can start to quiet the noise in our head, and the external noise. And also, that there's other ways too. And so whatever it is for you, pick one thing this week that is just creating a lot of noise in your head, and decide, what, how can I try life without this noise? What can I do to remove this noise so that I can hear myself better? And one thing about that, you're not always actually going to have like a thought about it, right? Again, we got to listen to our whole body. A lot of times, you feel the tightness in the chest, or you feel in the example of that you've given yourself some quiet, you might feel the unburdening. You might feel like a weight's been lifted off your shoulders, right? And you might not be able to articulate for yourself exactly what it was about the thing or why it feels like a relief, but you just notice, oh, I feel like I can breathe when I don't have this in my life. And so how can I take a break from it? And it might be like there's some things about it that you enjoy, maybe you do like, going to your buddy's house every Sunday for football. But there's something about it that's become burdensome or become fraught with noise in your head. That you're not making a decision to say, I'm never going to my buddy's house ever again in my life. You're just saying, I don't know, I feel like I'm going to take off a few weeks, and see what happens. No life decisions were made. You're just saying, what if I just gave myself a little break for a few Sundays? That's all I'm doing. Just taking a little break. Doesn't have to be a huge deal. You can figure it out later. You can make, after you have the informed decision now of how is life overall without going to Bob's house every Sunday. Do I feel calmer in general? Does it feel like the weight's off? Or no, I miss my friends, and that was a great way to connect with everybody. So you realize that wasn't the thing that was creating the noise, you know. The point to all this is give yourself some grace, give yourself some compassion, give yourself the latitude to create a little quiet so you can actually hear yourself occasionally, so you can start to feel what's important to you. And yeah, I think it'll just giving yourself that compassion will feel so much better. And you'll be able to move forward without feeling the pressure and the noise. And then keep doing that and keep testing it. Anyway, it was good to talk to you all, and I'll see you again soon.